Mr. Cohen,
Here.
Mr. Corey,
Here.
Mr. Hayward,
Here.
Ms. Parlamas,
Here.
Ms. Rendell,
Here.
Ms. Stevenson,
Here.
Ms. Calvez,
Here.
Dr. Robinson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Sorry, just hold on 1 second. All right. Who's next? Ms. Parlamas, if you're able to lead us through the flag salute?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I can stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of meeting in accordance with PL 1975, Chapter 231. Notice of tonight's meeting was mailed to the Record and the Ridgewood News on January 7th, 2025. Notice of this meeting was also mailed to the Borough Clerk and was posted on the bulletin board of the Board of Education office in the Administration Building on the same date. Ms. Carosella, are you able to read the mission statement?
The Glen Rock School District, founded on principles of education, in partnership with a supportive community, provides an exceptional education to all students to cultivate resilient, responsible, and engaged global citizens.
Thank you, that was amazing, thank you. All right. Mr. Van Nest.
I'll be brief, but a couple notes for you about things that are happening. Last week, we had our CUSAC review, which I know I've mentioned several times. It was kind of it's a big deal for us. So a team from the county office, 4 people came out to review personnel, finance, governance, operations, and curriculum and instruction. It went well. We have a couple minor things that they wanted us to follow up on, which I know he's already followed up with INP. I have a couple things to send them related to some minor things, but we should be in good shape. It was a long day, but it was a successful day. Yes, long day. I attended the Federated HSA meeting on Friday. It was nice to see folks from all the schools there, which was nice. Just kind of hear about the things they're coordinating and doing together. Attended the Hamilton Science Fair on Friday, which was great to see all of the budding scientists and their work there. I met Mr. Corey's wife. I had never met her before. That was lovely. Robotics was on Saturday. There were 21 teams who came to the rock slide competition. I'm not sure where our 2 teams placed, but I know both of them advanced to, is it states or regional? States, okay.
I know who's.
They both did. I was told they both advanced. So I was there for a bit of that.
Left and right, tables were being cleared out, and they were still there. It was really great.
Yeah, so that was great. A lot of people, a lot of great stuff. And then went and saw the musical Something Rotten, which was delightful. It was lovely to see all of the talent there and all the hard work, including your daughter. Lovely job. So it was great. It was a good week, but a busy week. And I believe that's all for my report. Be brief.
That was plenty, thank you. All right, I did also have a chance to go to the rock slide, and I'm always a fan of robotics, so that was amazing. And there's so much energy. Like, it might as well be a wrestling match. I don't know. Like, there's so much energy. So it's really great to see kids and working across districts to bring passion to this kind of stuff. So great. All right, on to personnel. Can I have a motion to discuss P1 through P6? Ms. Parlamas, Ms. Calvez is seconding. All right. Any items for discussion on P1 through P6, or any questions, comments? All right. Seeing no questions, are you able to call roll, please?
Ms. Carosella,
Yes.
Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Corey,
Yes.
Mr. Hayward,
Yes.
Ms. Parlamas,
Yes.
Ms. Rendell,
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson,
Yes.
Ms. Calvez,
Yes.
Dr. Robinson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, excellent. Our next topic of conversation is policy and discussing and doing a first read and review of the policies that are set forth in the agenda. This is not to be confused with the policies that we'll discuss later on that are the ones that we want to additionally review as part of our board goal for this year. I'll have Mr. Van Ness, who definitely has a better sense of organization for how to go through this, initiate. Thank you.
Thanks. So just as a reminder for those of you who might be new to this process, we contract with a legal firm called Strauss Esme, and they write our policies. And so what they do is they continually revise them to make sure that they're meeting the laws that are current and making sure that we're in the clear there. And so periodically they send us updates, and they're usually in big batches like this, that we need to revise, or we can revise, or we should revise, or things that have to be, there's a new policy here that we need to include according to them. And so a lot of it is boilerplate language that they give us, right? Just like when we're doing a contract, the lawyer says change this word from A to B, there's probably a reason for it. I don't always know the reason why. So there are a number of policies here that have just kind of minor changes, and I sent you some kind of short notes from their longer policy alert thing, so not to bog you down with that. So what I would like to do is go through them pretty much in the order that they're listed here, but skipping the ones that need decisions right now, so we can just kind of plow through the quick ones that are just updates. So the way that policy runs is that we have to have 2 readings. This is the first, the next one would be next meeting, and you would vote on it. So for example, if we started with 5460, this is the one about graduation requirements. No changes need to be made. They have some suggestions of language. If we're okay with it, then we can just mark, okay, let's move on. There are always, you can make revisions within parameters of what you can do. But I lost my train of thought. But we follow with their recommendations. The first one about graduation is the one that does spell out the requirements for graduation. How many credits for art, how many credits for, yes, I know. How many credits for art, how many credits for all of those things. And we talked about with our student rep, these are conversations that we will continue having with the community outreach thing, with our reps, all those things. And it's not something I think that the board should be prepared to make a change overnight, because there are larger ramifications with that. So with 5460, really what the Strauss Esme updates are about the correct graduation tests, NJ-GPA, which is new since the last policy, calling it NJ-SLA instead of PARC, because that's what our old policy said, and making sure that we're aligned to the state graduation requirements. Yes?
So one generic question about everything, and then specifically about that policy. So at some parts of the policies, the word of education is strike out, and some parts are not. So just for consistency reason, or just to understanding why are we?
Again, that's from Strauss, and we just go with it.
Can we please ask them?
No, that's not how it works. Like, we're not like a client of theirs. They send us a policy alert, and this is what we get.
Okay, and then why is the word the guardians strike out?
They had something in there about that, actually. 5460.
No, across the whole policy, across all 5,000 document.
There was something in there about because their definitions of parent includes guardian, so they're making it less wordy.
Got it.
Is what it was. I can't find it right this second.
Okay, specifically for 5460, A1A says 130 credits, and then A1B says 120 credits. So is it 120 or 130?
I have to look at it.
A1A says the graduation student must earn a minimum of 130 credits, and then A1B says the 120 credit requirements. And yeah, so there's contradiction numbers. Is it 130 or 120?
So the 120 is what's set forth by the state, the 130 is what's set by the district. That's
So our standard is higher.
Okay, got it.
From
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
Other concerns about 5460? All right, moving on. 5512, this is the HIB one, and really what they're doing is they added something about law enforcement officials being investigated to add information in this section, including parental notification requirements and procedural guidance on when a school district must stay or pause an HIB investigation to allow law enforcement to conclude their investigation. So again, it's the guidance from Strauss. Any other concerns about 5512?
Questions, concerns?
Yeah, 5512L says, let me just go there. Sorry, just finding it in the document.
Actually, I had one question on the tail end of 5460 as well. If you-
I'll
Mr.
just-
Corey, what was your question?
Yeah,
Just,
well-
just noting that clause E within it is marked as optional. Are we recognizing that we are including that or keeping it excluded because it's in brackets?
I'm sorry, which one?
So 5460, page 24 of the appendix, where we have state seal by literacy. It's marked as optional and it's in brackets. Does that mean that we're excluding it and we're not opting to include that?
No, we do include the state seal
You
of
do? Okay.
letters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you find your question, Mr. Cohen, with regards to L? Okay. Okay, no problem if you find it.
Just M, on M, yeah. So on M, it says the superintendent shall report 2 times a year about all the situations, but we do it every month. So can we change the policy to make sure that it reflects what we're doing rather than 2 times a year,
I'm
once a
sorry,
month?
Which section are you on? I'm sorry.
So M, 5212M, report to the board. We're doing it every month, no? We're doing the,
No, the SSDS report is what this is referring to, and that's
Okay.
done twice a year. I think it's going to happen at our next board
so
meeting.
that's separately than the monthly, okay, got
Yep.
it.
Though what you're referring to is the discipline, vandalism, and suspension report, which is done at every board meeting.
Okay, good. And then, N, it talks about school and district gradings. Is that, who does that grading and school requirements?
Each school safety team does that each year, and they rate themselves and score themselves each year.
Got it.
When they do that scoring, there's a rubric that they follow, correct? That's given out from
Yep,
the
and
state,
it's-
so they go, yeah,
Yep, and you approve it every year as a board.
right, so every school has the same rubric, right.
Yep.
Thank you. All right,
Any other concerns about 5512?
excellent.
Here we go. Okay. Moving on to 5516. So with 5516, this is the use of electronic communication, so cell phones, right? And they removed things like pagers and beepers because that we should, or we couldn't consider it anyway, because it's a little bit dated. They've offered some suggestions, some clarification, but one of the things that they did say is that boards have a lot of leeway to set this policy however they want, specifically in the regulation about how we implement it. And so we are talking with our school administrators when we do the regulation next time, because regulations only need one read, not two. When we do the regulation, to include what the school policies are into the district policy. So as you know, last year, the middle school moved to cell phones are not allowed. We would like to include that in the district policy so that it's something that the board has approved and voted on and is clear in front and center. And then we'll put together the same language for what specifically is allowed or forbidden at each of the grade levels. So we're working on that now. The principals are getting me that language.
And would you at some point in the future, be able to give us a little bit of feedback from them on how that policy has been going with regards to the rollout at the middle school level and,
Sure,
you know, if
actually,
you think that there's.
I'm going to put Mr. Morelli on the spot, because he was here last year as the interim or acting, or whatever you were,
Yeah.
middle school assistant principal. So talk to us about how that rolled out.
So when Mr. Lando sent out the communication to the parents last August, almost universally, the feedback was, thank you so much. We think that this is a great idea. Things that I noticed during my 2 stints, which totaled about 5 or 6 months as the acting assistant principal in the middle school, the cafeteria and the hallways were much louder. And I take that as a good thing, because it means that they're actually talking with one another and they're not just like this the entire time. At recess, they were playing with one another. There was a lot more active engagement in sort of semi-organized sports, soccer, kickball, stuff like that, and a lot less TikTok video filming, which had been happening a lot the year before. Generally speaking, many of the students do have phones, and so in terms of behavioral stuff, sometimes it would spill over into school from things that happened outside of school hours. I don't want to make a proclamation of exactly how many, but it was, I would venture to say less than 5, if not less than 3 kids who last year had their phones confiscated and had to be turned into the secretary every day. So just as a refresher on the policy, the students are supposed to keep their phones out of the way. They're supposed to be in their lockers. The first 2 times that the phone is confiscated, it's turned into the security desk, and a parent or guardian needs to pick it up between 3 and 4 o'clock. I know that my mother would have been furious if she had to leave work. Well, she wouldn't have left work is what would have happened, but they would have had to come to leave work between 3 and 4 o'clock. And we did have situations where the phones were left overnight, locked up, because a parent or guardian couldn't be here between 3 and 4 o'clock. On the 3rd offense, then they had to be turned into the administrative assistant until basically penance had been served. And I will say that message got around very quickly. Overall, I think it's been very, very positive, and it's gone really well.
Any feedback from teachers?
Oh, they love it, and in fact, high school teachers are clamoring for it as well. I think that there's, looking at high school versus middle school, there's a lot of differences there, just in terms of maturity and being able to multitask. The teachers all universally love it, and I will say, just being in classrooms as much as I am in my supervisor role and as the AP, you notice a significant difference just in terms of the engagement of students. In my opinion anyway, it's a home run and it's gone really well.
Since you're so graciously giving us the opportunity to hear directly from you about this, what was the rollout process like, and if there was an opportunity to advance this policy through to the high school, and that it was determined that that was the direction that everyone wanted to go, what are some lessons learned in terms of the process that we could think about?
So in the middle school, every marking period, there is a team level meeting. So you'll have team Glen 6, Team Rock 6, that is brought into the auditorium, so about 100 students that the principal and assistant principal address, and they have every marking period what we call reset meetings. And so at the beginning of the year, there was an introduction. I ran those because Mr. Escalante was still here at the beginning of the school year. I tagged him with him so that the students knew my face. In terms of the second marking period beginning, Mr. DeRosa was here, and so we sort of all worked together in tandem, but we just reinforced why we were putting those into place, I think was the biggest thing. And I know that personally as when I was a high school, middle school social studies teacher, I used to explain to my students all the time that it's really important that you understand why we're doing stuff. So even if you don't agree with it, it's important that you understand what the rationale is. And I have to really credit Mr. Orlando because she was very, very clear as to why this decision was being made. The kids I mean, they stepped up. They're, obviously, there may be some grumbling a little bit, but I think especially with the sixth graders last year, because they hadn't had them in elementary school, that was a pretty seamless transition. They didn't know anything else. I would say that part of the challenge for I think the high school right now, if it were to roll up, is that, and I don't imagine it's much different than what would have been in the middle school, is that teachers are given the opportunity to make policies based on the purview of their classrooms right now. So there are some teachers, for example, that have like a drop pocket where the kids each put their phones into the pockets at the beginning of class and then they pick them up on their way out. There are some teachers that just ask kids to put them away. I think because of that, there would be, not to say that teachers wouldn't hold that up consistently, but that would be something that everyone would have to get used to, is that kids are sort of used to some teachers, having one policy and other teachers having another policy. I imagine that just the level of communication that high school kids are having with their parents, just for example, if they're getting rides with friends or if they have after-school activities, they're a little less dependent upon their parents maybe for transportation as middle school kids would be. I could see that being something that would have to be taken into consideration. But again, I think the most important thing is that the students were, within the first day or two of school, explained why we were doing this the way that we were doing this, and that the communication had rolled out before the school year even started. So I wouldn't want to sit here and make a recommendation either way. I don't know if that's my place, but I do think that the rollout in the middle school was very successful, and my understanding by and large was that the reception was very positive from parents. I can say that when I was in my role, parents continually, if I had to be in touch with somebody about discipline, would say, well, thank goodness they don't have their phones during the day. In some cases, if there was a social issue that was bubbling up that had to do with, group FaceTimes or group text messages or Snapchats at night, they would say, well, he or she gets relief during the day because they don't have to deal with that. So that's sort of my finger on the pulse of it. Yeah. So,
Thank you very much for that.
yep, you're welcome.
All right.
Stephen? Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
there-
I was
there's
just
a
going on
couple-
with the cell phones, not in the middle school. I mean, I think before it goes on to anything bigger or expanded, it should be a conversation with the parents of like the kids in the high school or with the kids before, have some sort of a community discussion. I mean, there are pros and cons to it. But you just would like to have feedback and where we sit and what got us to the point that where we are. I just think it's good for transparency and it's good for engaging the community on such a big, I know there's a lot of studies out there. And other school districts are banning cell phones, but it would just be, I think, advantageous if we would have a community discussion on it before it's like, oh, wow, this is what we're going to do.
I would definitely say that, as you see and you're involved in, and for any community members that may be watching, we're absolutely open to that. And I think this is kind of just an opportunity where we're having a first read of a policy and looking at what's actually going on outside of Glen Rock to say, like, is there some way that we should be looking into inserting, like some of that knowledge here? And if it was determined, I would say one, like, I would say that what we could do as a board is if we wanted to find out, like, well, what is, like, a good place to start would be to kind of get the temperature from the teachers and the administrators to say, like, is this something that they would, celebrate, like something more formal. And then if it was, then we would then go to the next step, like what you said, and, we have that subcommittee elicit some sort of format for us to get feedback from the community on this issue, and then go from there and, whatever it is that the board decides and go from there. So I think it's just a part of us having this kind of open conversation and taking it where we think we want to take it.
Right, so everybody think that, oh, next time we're going to read this and this is what we're doing. I want to be
No.
clear that's not what we're doing, right?
No.
And it's, because I don't want anything to be misinterpreted. But it's a good place to start, and it's good to have discussions,
Yeah.
because that's how we learn things and can make the
Truthfully, if we were going
right
to
choices.
adopt anything, it would probably be just adopting the current language that you see here and just updating it. And then it doesn't mean that we wouldn't be able to, in the future, do something more that would take longer period of time. Yes.
The way that it's written here refers to a policy and a regulation that we don't have. So I don't know how we can adopt this calling to regulation. We don't have the regulation. So we're missing regulation 5516.
All the policies and regulations are on the website and they're
They're
searchable.
not,
It's
there's
actually-
no, can you find 5516, please?
We might not sometimes.
Right.
I just wanted to, Dr. Robinson, to add on to what you were saying with regard to issuing or getting feedback, soliciting feedback from faculty. Mr. Lindo did last year have a survey out to faculty about this specific topic in the high school, and it was something that she already kind of has a sense of where teachers are falling. So this wouldn't, Ms. Stevenson, to your point, this wouldn't be a totally new conversation should we go in that direction.
I just didn't want anybody to think that this is happening with
Oh,
that.
right, of course.
Right, right. That was my point, yeah.
The policy calls for regulation that doesn't exist. So I don't know how we can vote on on a policy that refers to regulation without having a regulation.
So, well, I would say
The
this
policy,
is
the vote on this
first-
policy will be next meeting. The regulation will be provided there because you only need one reading for a regulation.
Does that answer your question? Okay. And Mr. Corey?
Yeah, to give some context to discussions in the community too, there's an effort, it's called Wait Till 8th, where there's a lot of parents that are slow, I'd call it a groundswell of parents that don't want their kids to be stuck captive to technology. You don't need, if they don't have cell phones for their kids in 5th and 6th grade, then there's social pressure, oh, if I'm missing out on X, Y, and Z. So I think there's a lot of voices in the community that'd be really interested to hear how this middle school policy is working. If it's a complete ban within those years, it fits into what's already being asked. And not mandated, but a lot of families are volunteering into that process for themselves. So for us, as we're board members, we have 2 years listening to the community. Stuff like this is happening around, and I think it'd be really supportive of what we're discussing right now. So not to say we need to go out and drum up and sell this. It's just we can just open up the topic more publicly and say, hey, by the way, make an announcement. This is what we're discussing, and I bet you'll hear a lot of the feedback that we're looking to get already. So.
Thank you.
Any other comments, concerns about 5516? All right, so we'll have this and the regulation for you for the next meeting. All right, moving on to 5533. So this is about student smoking. The updates from Strauss Esme revised to add a section titled Electronic Smoking Devices, and it also addresses the school district's responsibility to report the use or seizure of an electronic smoking device to law enforcement. So it updates that. Any concerns about 5533? All right, moving on. 5701 used to be called, or is currently called, plagiarism, and they recommend changing it to academic integrity. And the way they've revised it defines 7 examples of prohibited acts with an additional kind of catch-all provision to include conduct not defined in the 7 definitions of the new guide. So this is one that we've been talking quite a bit about internally, which is specifically what do we do about AI and the use of AI. And so this addresses it some, and basically it comes down on the idea that any other conduct determined by the principal that compromise the academic integrity of a student's work. So the way we are kind of operating, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is unless the teacher specifically says you may use AI to do this as a tool, then it is not allowed, right? And so we work from kind of that as a premise moving forward, with the idea that some teachers, and certainly the pilot project we're going to be starting, encourages the use of AI as a tool, because if you are unaware of how to use it effectively for legitimate purposes, you are at a disadvantage to those who do understand those things. So how do we use it as a tool is kind of the sticky thing. And I know Mr. Morelli, Mr. Cusack, various others have been doing a lot of work and talking with teachers about this, about how do we manage this new dimension of education.
I just want to add to that there's been a lot of reinforcement with faculty about being very clear about expectations. So we all, as an administration, have been talking about giving kids the benefit of the doubt as long as there are clear expectations laid out. So I think it's, the example that I use with my teachers in the social studies and business department is that if I had specific instructions of something that I needed you to do for me or to do for the department or for the school, or Mr. Lando did, you would expect to know what the sort of the guidelines for those are, and it should be the same for our students. And I think that therefore, when it gets to either using AI for teaching and learning purposes, or even things like Turnitin.com we'll use as an AI detector if necessary, having kids understand that you can actually use that to check your own work. So it's not a gotcha, but more about how are you making sure that you are being academically honest. There is a clause in the student handbook that says any work that is not wholly and truly your own, and if there's not explicit permission about AI, as Mr. Van Ness said. So I think the big thing that we have tried to emphasize is not that this is a boogeyman that is a really scary thing, but instead how do students learn to use it responsibly?
I have an offhand question, with regards to that Turnitin process and the AI detection and things like that. I remember with some grad school work that I have been doing, we would have to have like a certain like score or percent, like you had to make sure that like that was part of the turn-in process. Like, okay, if there was something missing or like some other threshold wasn't reached, then you wouldn't be able to turn it in. Just the same way that you said that the students could use it to check their work. Is this something that the kids like proactively tend to do, or?
I think that it really depends on the assignment and the context of that. I think that, just as an example, there was a teacher that came to me recently that it was very clear in looking at the first part of the assignment and the second part of the assignment that the work was just, it was not the words of the student. If you looked at past writing of the student in class writing, it didn't match. And so I think that the way that the teachers have been approaching it and the administration's suggestion has been to begin with an open conversation and to say to the student, like, let's take a look at this, and do you notice a difference? Can you tell me? And I will say that the vast majority of the time, students will admit, and then they will basically answer the follow-up question, which is, well, why'd you do it, right? And that is more of the open conversation around it. Less about a certain percentage of what would count or be allowed or not count or be allowed, and more about what would make you decide to take this shortcut at this specific juncture in this assignment, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
Are there questions about academic integrity policy? Okay, moving on to student grievance. And this is our grievance policy, and what they've done is to revise it to make it more specific as far as requiring written documentation, timelines to follow grievance, timelines for the district. It spells all the details of the grievance procedure out in more specific ways than we have now.
Yeah, I don't think it's for now, but I think we should review it to allow just, because when there's a punishment, there's no chance for the grievance to actually have a conversation with the next level or with the board. And so looking at the grievance policy to allow the grievance process to happen before the consequences actually are enforced, to actually make the grievance process effective. So we don't have to give it now, but I think that's one of the things that I'd recommend reviewing in the future.
Thank you.
Other comments, concerns, questions? All right, moving on to electronic surveillance in school buildings on school grounds. So that's 7441. Basically, as you know, we recently signed the Uniform State Memorandum of Agreement between education and law enforcement officials. It's a new MOA, and basically it spells out in specific details when outside law enforcement agencies are able to use our cameras in an emergency situation. And so they've added language to address that. Concerns, questions? All right. We're going to skip down a little bit because the rest all require some choices here. And that is 9320 is the last one on there. And 9320 is updated also because of that same Uniform State Memorandum of Agreement. The state wrote this thing, it changed relationships between schools and the law enforcement officials, and so our policy needs to reflect the same. Questions about that?
Just going back, because we skipped 7510, so.
Yes, I'm going to come back to that one.
Okay, got it.
Questions? All right, so 5460, 5512, 5516, 5533, the ones we've gone through, those will be on for next time. It doesn't seem like there are any real concerns or questions about that. We can vote on it. The other thing I forgot to mention, or maybe I did, is none of these, there are times that Strauss says you have to fix this and you have to fix it right now or by a certain time, or otherwise we're not compliant with a law or a statute or something like that. None of these are time bound. So if we need additional time to talk about any of these, we'll take additional time to talk about any of these. And the first one that we may need additional time to talk about is 5111. So the reason we might need additional time to talk about this is that the guidance from Strauss says also you probably should consult with your own legal team to make sure, because there's some pretty significant changes here. So 5111 is about tuition for non-resident students. Non-resident is anybody whose parents don't live or guardians don't live in town. And so what happened is basically what happened is Strauss reached out to the state for clarification on these things, and the state clarified. And the state clarified in ways that's going to change some things fairly significantly for us. So the New Jersey State Board of Education recently published comments and responses for the proposed code revisions. Strauss Esme submitted a comment requesting clarification. They clarified. And so there are some changes here, and I'm going to walk you through it. I put it in, it's convoluted what their writing is, so I tried to make it as straightforward as possible to you. So the first option for the board is, do we allow non-resident staff members to enroll their student in our district? So any staff member, yes or no. And currently, we allow that, right? And we have for many years, and that's normal. So that's kind of option one. Do you all want to stay with option one? Good. So then what the state has done is they have drawn a distinction between teaching staff members and non-teaching staff members. And they define teaching staff members anybody with a certificate. So it could be an administrator, it could be an athletic director, it could be anybody who requires a certificate. And everybody else, that would be our administrative assistants, that would be our technology people, that would be anybody else who works for the district is a non-teaching staff. And what they're saying is those are different in their eyes now about charging tuition. So option two is children of non-resident teaching staff members. Any teaching staff members, we can choose one of three options. Option A is they cannot enroll their kids. Which is not what we've been doing. Option B is teaching staff members can enroll their kids, but they have to pay tuition. And we can set that tuition at whatever we want. It doesn't have to be the same as the regular non-resident tuition. We could charge them $5 if we wanted. We could charge them the full rate, whatever it is. Or option C is teaching staff members can enroll their non-resident students without payment of tuition. That is currently how we operate. Currently, non-resident teaching staff members have children in our schools right now. There may be a dozen of them. Their kids attend our schools. We do not charge them tuition. It is the board's choice, A, B, or C. I'm assuming C. C. Okay, that's where I thought we would be. Now, option three, children of non-resident teaching staff members. We can choose either to not allow them here or to allow them here, but they have to pay the full non-resident tuition. There's no option for tuition-free or a reduced tuition. Currently, we do not have any staff members in this position. There's nobody right now whose kids are in the district who's a non-teaching staff member. We have had them in the past. I know of a handful of people that are considering it for the future, but there are none right now. So the only, and this is, again, where we can reach out to Rodney for his opinion on this as well. The only choices, according to Strauss, are either no, they can't, or yes, they can, but they're paying full tuition.
Or we go to Rodney and say choice C.
Can we do a choice C? Yeah.
We make it 3 decisions.
I don't think it's fair to have again, if it's state regulation, we can't really change that, but if we could do a C option, because I don't think it's fair to have 2 tiers of, well, your certificated staff, your child can go here free, you're not, so that's just not right.
I'm strong in support of keeping, you're, in some capacity, you're serving the district, and that's a understood agreement, and so that creates the levels and separation. But we can add to policy, this is kind of a, the state, the way the state wrote it, that's the minimum, but we must accept and we can augment, is that?
Not according to Strauss.
Okay.
According to Strauss, we have to charge them our understanding of it. And we have, I've looked at, our understanding of it, according to their guidance, is we don't have an option C, according to the state's guidance. And I think that's something I would like to ask Rodney.
Yes.
Is this true?
Yes.
Okay.
Or are there other options within there that may be available?
Or
If there are
charging
other
$1.
options within what you see the legal language, that maybe we can tailor it to our district.
Okay. I will take that to him and get back to you. And this is why, I mean, we might not have this policy done, but I'd rather, because the other question I have for him is, again, we don't have anybody in this boat right now, current staff members. If we approved this policy in a couple weeks, would we all of a sudden spring a tuition bill on some staff member? That, like, do we have to pass it now, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So I will ask him. Those will be my 2 questions so far. We have. We have.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
And you said there's a potential that in the near future, there may be.
I hear rumors of at least 1 person considering it and maybe a second, and actually a third. So those are the rumors that I've heard, but I haven't actually confirmed. Actually, I confirmed. All right, the next one. This one is not going to affect us, I don't think, very much. This is students who anticipate moving to the district during the school year. Currently, what we have, and I gave you the policy, is that if somebody is moving into the district, they have a lease, they have they made an offer on a house, et cetera, and they wanted to start the school year here prior to moving in, we allow that, as long as they're paying tuition at the non-resident rate and no more than 21 weeks prior to. We allow that. The guidance says we can continue to allow that, and we can fill in that blank with 21. Are you all cool with 21?
I had a question on that.
Yeah.
How is that different than we allow non-residents to pay tuition for the entire year?
Really isn't much different, is it? Except that a district could choose one but not the other, right? A district could say, we allow only if you're coming in, but we don't allow non-residents in general. Like, I never planned to move to Glen Rock, but I want to send my kid there, is a different story than I'm planning to move here, can I send my kid here to start the year?
Since we allow both, it's really irrelevant how many
Yep.
weeks is on this policy, though? Because they could be a
true.
non-resident anyway.
Yep, very true. That's true. 21 is what we said. Okay, the next one,
Greg, have we
Yes.
in practice not accepted students that would not live in, not have a plan and do not live? Like, is that, that's
Yeah.
precedent though?
we
So-
allow, we
So,
have
but if somebody
tuition-paying
is
students.
moving in, it's 21
Yeah.
weeks and
So
then.
to her
thou
point,
shalt,
it
yeah.
doesn't matter both, because we allow it. You don't need to say you're moving here in 21 weeks. We'll allow you if you want to pay tuition, come on over.
Yeah,
Right.
but okay,
We
so
allow
not,
it.
Same rate.
kind of, yeah. I'm indefinitely moving.
All
Right, you-
right, the next one is a change, according to Strauss's guidance here. Students whose parents move away the school district during the school year. Currently, our policy does two different things. The first is, for any kid that's not a senior, any kid, if you are here and your parents move away, our policy says that if you do that on or after March 15th, you are permitted to finish the school year without paying tuition. You can finish up if it's March 15th or later. You don't have to pay anything because you're one of ours. And then currently, our policy says if you are in grade 12 and are graduating this year, you can attend that whole year without paying tuition. March 15th doesn't matter. It could be the entire senior year if you want. That's what our current policy is. What this guidance is saying is we can choose between A, B, and C. A is, no, you leave today. If you're not living here, you have to go. I don't think we want to do that. B is in grade blank and their graduation year, can finish the school year, but will pay you full tuition. And C is, can finish the school year, but will pay the uniform tuition rate. So basically, it's kind of like the non-teaching staff member. We're allowed to have them here, but we have to charge them the full tuition rate, is what Strauss's guidance from what the state told them.
Can you repeat again like essentially what the monetary difference between B and C would be?
B is if we can say they're a senior and you can finish the year and pay the tuition. And C is anybody can finish the year, but you have to pay tuition. Right? So one would be restrictive, B would be restrictive to just seniors finishing their graduating year, and everybody else has to get out when they move out. I don't think we want to do that, right? They're here, we want them to stay here. But according to Strauss, the guidance and the way we're reading this, and this is the other area that I think we ask Rodney for his opinion on this, is it seems that we have no choice. We have to charge them tuition.
You're saying even senior privilege, so if they leave their senior year, they're also having to pay.
That's how I'm reading their
Okay.
guidance, but I want to verify with.
I would like you to verify with Rodney as well, thank you.
Yeah, I don't understand why if somebody's a senior, they don't have to pay. Like, what's the logic? If they don't pay taxes to the town, they don't live here, then the grade doesn't matter. They can pay the taxes. Goodwill.
Well, they're graduating from the high school at that point with a certificate. No, it's after March 15th.
For the senior privilege,
Senior year, I'm sorry.
I think that's for the kids' benefit and the kids' mental health. It's their last year in a district that they've grown up in, and I think that's why the board of years and years ago decided that.
That is fine. The parents can pay. If they want to move it out of the district, the parents can pay.
I think now that if things go the way that Strauss Esme is suggesting, then that is the only option, actually. Either you tell them they have to leave or they have to pay, and it's determined upon which group we're saying has to pay. Is it all of them or just seniors?
Or we ask if we can continue to do what we're doing.
Yes.
How many times do we get a senior that comes here tuition free? Not that
I
often.
think maybe one or two
Right.
since I've been here.
Right,
This
and
is my
and
fifth
sometimes
year.
there's extenuating circumstances
Yeah.
that family has where maybe they've made a lot of sacrifices to live here and they just can't do it anymore, and for whatever their reason, that they have to move out. I agree with Sinead that I think it's in the best interest of the student to finish out senior year in the district that they probably have attended since kindergarten.
All right, but I will ask guidance from our attorney on that one. The last two sections are for F1 and J1 visas. The current policy, our current policy allows students on F1 and J1 visas to attend, and we still have that option to allow them to attend or to not attend, so.
Do we have any F1 or J1 or what?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I think that we do, but I don't know.
And is there an option to charge? Right now it says you allow but not charging. Can we charge?
Our policy, I think currently, we do charge on J1 in the policy, and on F1, we do not charge. And I had a question that I had emailed about why the policy was such, what the difference was, but.
Right. Questions to me about why the policy is the way it is, I don't have answers to, right? I wasn't here when the policies were originally decided, and I can't answer why or what was the rationale or what was, like, it's what the policy is. That's all I know.
Well, I'm just pointing out, I think our policy does have two different tuition rates for those two different titles.
So can we ask our lawyers if there's an option to charge for, like a third option to charge for F1 and J1? Because right now the two options is either yes or no, but the yes is for free. Can we have a third option for yes for a charge?
Is that something the board wants?
Why would we give F1 students and J1 students free tuition to the
I
school?
assume that those students are staying with someone who lives in the district and is paying taxes.
But they might be making money for bringing the students for J1 or F1. Like, there's a reason why there's somebody from F1 and J1 lives at their house. I don't know.
That's,
I think the idea that they live in town is
they're staying with someone
not
who.
clearly stated, right? But if it said F1 students living in Glen Rock or in district, or currently residing in district, maybe that would make people feel better. It does say it on J1.
Than the one that we're looking at right now, yes.
My question is, like, why would an F1 or J1 students live in Glen Rock, like go to the schools? Like, there's exchange programs, right? What is the source of the J1 or F1 students?
I mean, from my own personal life, I can think of an example where cousins might want to be together. My children might want to spend time in France with their father's family, and conversely, those
Yeah,
kids
but
might
we
want
don't
to come
allow
here.
family members who,
host
right?
family would be
If you're
domiciled in
non,
district,
so
yeah.
that's a question. If a cousin lives with a different family, like, is that a,
If I'm
Part-
domiciled in
Okay, they
Glen
both
Rock,
say it, yeah.
I'm eligible to attend
yeah,
Glen Rock.
both say
so it
it's
doesn't
domiciled
matter
in
if
the
it's
So they're paying taxes.
root family or not?
That's my understanding.
So if they're domiciled in the district, then they're paying taxes. With the family, the host family is paying taxes on the school, like any other family.
There's exchange programs, and families might benefit from having students living there.
And it's legal.
And that's the distinction between F1 and J1. One's on scholarship and one's not. So there is a distinction there.
It's important to have the option to move, in charge of patient. Now, what's the damage of getting that information?
I mean, well, the damage is. I'm sorry. Forming a legal opinion does cost the board, right? So that's just one thing, just for us to know that anytime we ask for legal advice on something, there is a cost to us. So that's why when we try and do those kinds of things, unless there's specific circumstances that require legal opinions, that we have like some sort of consensus that the board wants this to charge. So that's all that you'd be asking. Is there a consensus on your opinion in order to seek legal representation, if that is the word?
Well,
So,
before we even have to ask it, you could probably take a straw poll on, because it's either permit or not permit, right? That's the
Yeah.
option.
yeah, yep.
I don't-
And also, this is a first reading, so more information can be sought and all of those things. So first straw poll is, can you help?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Like, I guess, because part of it is like the options between the different options that we're looking at. Like, so there's the F1, J1, and permitting and not permitting. Hold on.
Just based on discussion, it doesn't sound like anyone's saying no admittance. So maybe we take that off the table. It's just a question of admittance or admittance with tuition. Right? Is that kind of the discussion?
Correct, and then the question is for the lawyers, like, is that option has been feasible?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to ask.
Right.
I'm not trying.
Okay.
And we have the current practice of allowing it.
We have the current practice of allowing.
Right.
Okay. Now ask about charging. Just so you know, as Dr. Robinson mentioned, we are billed by the hour, and our attorney is possessive of many words. So we need to be cautious about what all we ask. They're long conversations. Okay. I'm going to skip, I'm not trying to do it on purpose, I want to come back to that one because that's a little bit different. 7510 is one that we brought out because we want to talk about it. I want to finish the Strauss guidance ones first. And so that is skipping to 8500. This one is about food services, and there are a couple choices to be made. And really, it just, most of these things are about regulations to deal with national food lunch program things, which we don't participate in. So a lot of this policy really isn't that relevant to us. The one choice that you have to make, and that is whether we allow students to charge for lunch, right? So as you know, parents pay, I don't know exactly how it's done logistically here, but you can pay for your lunches in advance, right? And if,
They have a program called Pay School.
There you go.
And it's automatic, and then when it
Yep.
runs low, I get a little email, and then I
Yep.
have to replenish my son's account.
and then when you forget, and then, Mr. Hayward, when you forget to replenish your son's account, and he shows up here and he's hungry, what happens?
I'll give him nothing. No, I'm kidding.
I know, because my
didn't
kids
say that.
often run out of money. Sometimes they give them food and
Yeah, I
sometimes they
think
don't.
they have a heart.
So the question here
Not always.
is basically, can they charge it, is basically, can they run into a negative balance? Right, run a tab, if you will.
I think
And-
I think they have.
And this allows us to do it. This is
Yeah.
what we currently do. Because we want
Yeah.
students to eat if they are hungry.
Yeah, you
And
want
there
them to
are-
eat, God
There are
forbid.
there are boards that say, absolutely
You
not.
want them to eat, and you want it paid for.
You know, and maybe the boards, the districts that say no, they have another plan, whether it's, sandwiches or something, I don't know what it is. But we have operated, I believe, we allow them to charge meals. And that would be my recommendation, is we continue to allow it, because parents are forgetful sometimes.
I'm alerted when it gets down to $5. So if you buy something that's like $5.50 and I don't do it that morning,
Right, there you are.
it hits a negative for an
So
hour.
that would be the one decision made on this very long policy, mostly that doesn't apply to us. Anything, comments, questions, or agreement about that? All right. Okay, spectator code of conduct for interscholastic events. The NJSIAA is requiring every school to adopt a spectator code of conduct policy during the school year. So Strauss has written one. What we did, if you look through it, is that we met with our high school principal and the athletic director to talk through these, and because there are a lot of blanks to be filled in, right? So how many days for this and how many for that and those kinds of things. So it's not in the one that's in backup, it's in the one that I emailed you, are those recommendations. So let me find it. No. Yeah. Here we go. The document is called Cow Policy Updates. So I'll just kind of read through it's 93 pages long, 9163. Okay. So disciplinary framework under A2A, suspension from attending the next 5 home events is the recommendation from our administrators. The second offense occurring within a 365-day calendar, suspension from attending the next 6 home events. The third offense would be 10 home events, so kind of progressing through that. Moving to the options, district may choose one or more of the following options. Option 1 is in the event it is determined by the principal or designee that a person exhibited unsportsmanlike conduct at an interscholastic event not held in the school building or on school grounds, the person shall be subject to disciplinary actions outlined in this policy. So if one of our people misbehaves away, it's still, and we think that should be a yes. Option 2, we think should be all of the options. Let me just summarize. All of the options, they think yes. I'm not going to read all of them. You have it in front of them. For option 3, there's some choices. It says a person who has been suspended for more than 6 interscholastic events within 3 months shall be, that resulted in a suspension from attending home interscholastic games may be suspended by the principal or designee from attending additional home events. For D, the blank in there is 9 is what they recommended, home interscholastic events. And those are all of the option numbers. So those were the recommendations from the building administration. Open to comments, questions, concerns.
Questions?
This helps the building principals and the AD dealing with things that come up. We don't have a lot of problems with this, but sometimes we do, and it's nice to have a board-approved policy that makes it very clear, so it doesn't feel like it's arbitrary on the part of the principal or the AD. All right. The last one is 7510, and this is not a Strauss-Esme update. This is, we had decided to pull this also, and then we were requested to look at this. So 7510 and Regulation 7510 have to do with the use of facilities from other groups. If they want to rent our space, if they want to rent our field, whatever it is. And specifically, the reason we're bringing these up right now is because there are questions about the new turf field lights that are to be installed imminently. So they were ready to go and put up the posts, everything is there, and then it snowed. And then it got melted and it's wet and then it snowed again. So as soon as the ground is dry and hard enough, there will be posts put up, but it's winter, that's where we are. So prior to that, we wanted to have a conversation with the board about how do we want to go about changing, if we're gonna change anything to do with our policy or regulation about how we charge. That's where I'll leave it.
Ms. Rendell?
So I met with Rab, so this is long, and I'm going to talk about it, and that's what we're going to do. So as we heard from Matt Lee a few weeks ago, you know, the board's the what, and they're the how, so basically that boils down to we're the policy, they're the regulation. So even though this is policy 7510, like in this case, we're adding lights, which is a change, but it doesn't really change our policy so much. So I was hoping we could really talk about both of them for this particular thing. So this is, we discussed at RAB, in case anyone doesn't know, it's Recreational Advisory Board. It's made up of all of our youth sports in town, made up of Glen Rock children. So we discussed the installation of the new lights, and most of their questions are centered around what we are going to charge them and how we're going to charge them. So this is what, based on what RAB has said, this is what their current practice is, our current practice to RAB. They don't pay for the field usage. They only pay for extras, like the press box and, in this case, lights. So they are saying that each organization per night is charged $100. So if there's 3 or 4, it's $300 or $400 per every time we turn on the stadium lights. So our regulation is a little vague, and so I hoped that we could sort of just provide like a clear what we wanted from them for when they are writing the regulation. So this is what I believe the full financial look for youth sports looks like. And this is from the town. This is the town's plan as of now. So an MOU was or will be signed shortly by the youth sports for a charge of $50,000 for the use of Faber Field specifically. That was explained by the mayor that it was their way to mitigate the backlash from residents so that people that didn't want the turf will now not have to pay for the turf, and this will be accrued by only youth sports people that play on a field, that play on Faber Field. And they want to increase that percentage, which is not fully agreed upon yet, but it will be every year. So that's for the replacement and maintenance of their field. Personal side note, I think as a governing body, it's wrong to tax or charge a specific fee to a certain select amount of people, because I think Faber provides a lot of uses, and it's not limited to just the children that play organized field sports. So for us, I don't think it's a suitable solution, and I don't suggest that we charge a flat fee with an unknown adjustable increase. So after speaking to them, they had some questions, and I think we can take the decisions that we make from those questions to write a better policy and also inform them of what we think the what should be. So for this purpose, we're only concerned about the lights. RAB's not charged again to use our field, and the field usage won't increase. We literally use our fields all the time, all the way. The only thing it would potentially change would be morning, and that's not a thing. Because remember, we had portable lights down there. They were being used. So the only thing that the lighting is doing is it will be better lighting, it'll be less noisy, it's safer for our kids, it's safer for the planet, less damage to the turf, and it's more equitable. More sports can actually play down there. So here's the main question. Basically, what are we going to charge? For me, I think that in order to answer that question, we really need to know what it costs us to turn on those lights. So since the field usage doesn't change, the only increase to our bottom line is this additional light. So I had asked James and Greg for the kilowatt hour, which is a number given on a spec sheet provided by our architect, but I was told no. So I asked for the spec sheet so I could do it myself, which I was told they don't have, which was concerning. But then I was told, no, we need to vote on the ability to get that information from them. So I did my own kind of rough numbers. So this is rough, but I couldn't really have a discussion with you guys without something. So this is what I have, and I'll kind of explain it to you. So again, no spec sheet. I think our stadium field has metal halide lights. That's about, let's say it's about 1,000 watts a bulb, and that's 1 kilowatt, right? So that is rough, but also kind of on the cautious end, and it also makes for easy math, so go with me. So if you run those lamps for 1 hour, it's 1 kilowatt hour. And since each fixture, I went out and counted them, there's 15 lamps, and we have 4 fixtures. So if you have 4 fixtures and 15 lamps in each fixture, that's 60 kilowatt hours. 60 kilowatt hours times the number of hours we use the field, let's say 4 hours on average a night, that's 240 kilowatt hours. Based on AI, because again, not able to get the information, it's about 15 cents per kilowatt hour in northern New Jersey for a public school. So meaning that the cost to turn on the stadium lights is very, very roughly $36 per day, which took about 5 minutes to do. So the LEDs though, not exactly as sure, but I would assume, like, I did the same kind of math and it sort of sounds the same. So that would be about $72 roughly to light the whole thing. So I'm not making a recommendation on what we should charge right now, but I can't imagine any of you being able to make this decision without knowing that number. So that's that. Rab also asked if they should be charged for lights separately, and considering they don't pay for the field usage, I think this is a fair fee to charge them because we shouldn't be losing money. I think that's fiscally irresponsible for us as well. But I don't think we need to like go crazy either. So if people feel differently, that's fine, but I think ultimately we need to vote on whether or not we want the information first. Correct?
Sorry, just to summarize what you said, you're suggesting an extra fee for turning on the lights?
I'm suggesting that since we are required to make that decision, like, we should know what the price
Yeah,
is,
I understand.
and then we get to decide if we charge an
Sure.
extra fee or not. I'm not making a
No,
suggestion.
I understand. What you're suggesting is instead of having one fee to use the field that includes the cost of a light, have a separate fee. So one cost for the field and one cost for the light, and you're asking us to get information about what the fee should be.
Okay, so RAB doesn't pay for the field usage, so, and this is only specific to
Sorry,
RAB.
what's RAB?
So it's the Recreational Advisory Board. It's our youth sports.
Okay.
It's Shooting Stars and all
Okay.
of the lacrosse. And so what I am suggesting is that this is a lights conversation. So we can charge per field. We can charge one fee flat. We can charge per group. It is ours. I'm just trying to give you as much information as I've got, and so that we can make the decision next month whenever we have.
Sinead, you said that the fields are always in use, so are they always on no matter what, the lights for every field? Is it on, or do you have, someone has to say, I'm going to turn this field on, but this field
So,
off?
As it's been in years past, so this year's different because those lights, it's not it functioning, but prior to it, only Shooting Stars and Soccer Club had access to those lights because they bought them. And they're low, so they're the only ones that could use them. So even though the field could be used by other things, the light wasn't adequate. And they're the only people that had the ability to turn those lights on or off. They had a lock and a key. So they are the only people that could, but if you went down there anytime during the day or anytime at night, they are on. Like, you can see school dudes, it's all in there. They are used, currently they're not being used, but last year they were used all the
But
time.
whether it's used by X team or Y team, it's going to be on?
It's on, yes, it's gonna be on.
Okay.
That's what it's going to be on every night that it
And
needs to
can
be
you
on.
repeat what you said about, you were saying that the LED is different than the kilowatts, or, I didn't
So
really catch
LEDs,
what you were saying.
like in general, are much, much more energy efficient. But I don't, the number of bulbs, the number of lamps is, I don't know, I don't have the spec sheet. So, like, on a very, very cautious, to say we have 60 bulbs in there makes kind of enough sense at maybe 1 kilowatt, like, so that's just, I just kind of tried to get a number, which, I mean, assuming that they're both about 36.
So it's new and we don't have the data, and so we can run it for a year and next year we'll have more data.
No,
and
we
the cost-
do, but we need to vote to get the data from them.
Okay,
They wouldn't
so
give it to me.
That's great, let's vote.
So you want us to vote to get the data so we can make the decision after to verify your numbers? Correct, okay.
That's,
Could I just, would there be a different use case with these lights? Because if it's only limited to the rec soccer team, like the varsity soccer teams and
it's
such.
for anybody now.
It is now, but I'm saying past use. Maybe
So
the
they-
football field that had lighting would be, we could look to that usage. And was that, those lights are always on specific days, so it'd be less of like an on-off. There's no kind of like facility access fee that we might be able to charge, but it's more of just, if you're on and you're playing at night, then you get tagged with the usage fee. 'Cause I'd be concerned if everybody got hit for a turn the lights on fee, and then you'd have 4 different teams saying, yeah, that's what, and that's the conversation that I think has come back to a lot of us, that I'm getting charged to turn on the lights, hey, everybody else is, and that just
I
gets,
guess
it's
If
get
it
muddled.
costs $5, that's why we need the data. If it's like
Yeah.
$3, then it's not, but if it's $300, that's something.
I
We just
agree.
guesstimated that it's $36, so that's
I-
fine.
Totally agree with you.
Before we continue on as a board, a lot of information has been shared, so I want to make sure that, we can like circle back and see, what our admin team has to say about this information.
Yeah, sure. I'll let Mr. Canales talk about this in a little bit, but I think the question for the board is, in the past, we have charged for lights, but not for the fields. Is that what you want to continue doing, right? And if so, how much do you want to charge for it? Going down this rabbit hole of how many kilowatt hours and et cetera, is, we just spent $800 and something thousand on these lights. We're never going to make a profit off of this, right? And we're not trying to make a profit off of it. It's been $100 for I don't know how long, and that's a one-time fee, $100 to turn on the lights. And you can keep that, you can change that, you can do whatever you want. But the issue is not exactly how many pennies it costs to turn it on each time, because, like I said, we've already invested a lot in this. At $100 a night, it's going to take a long time for us to break even. We're not trying to break even, we're not trying to make a profit. James, something to add? You were.
I think the issue is that the electricity to run the lights is really nearly negligible, right? I think the decision before the board is, do we want to charge for lights or do we not want to charge for lights? It's not correlated to the actual electrical draw. This afternoon, we used AI as well and saw something in the neighborhood of like $500 or $580 a month on new LEDs to run the lights. I looked in a very unscientific way at the bills for the stadium field, and they could range from anywhere from $200 for a month to, $3,000 during like the peak of November where, there's almost no sunlight at all. So I just think that the marriage of the kilowatt charge to the fee is a bit misdirected. It's just a use fee, not an electrical fee. That's all I'd have to say.
I tend to focus this way. I just want to give this side of the room an opportunity. Yes.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, there's use of facility fees, I'm looking at the regulation, custodial fees, and there's service costs, and all that usually gets rounded into about $100 per team per game. Is that what I'm hearing? Currently, our current practice.
The way I understand lights is that if, and excuse me, I'm not familiar with all of the names of the divisions and teams. If soccer, just being very generic, has a 5-hour block on a Tuesday night, they're charged $100. If, let's say, football needed an hour before they started on their block, then they would also be charged $100. So that's my understanding of the way the billing has been done through Buildings and Grounds.
So it's not correlated to time either,
It's not.
or anything.
It-
And the RAB is frustrated by this.
They
Yeah,
talked about it as
okay.
booking.
So really, I think it's probably reasonable to charge something. I don't know if we need to micromanage the kilowatts versus the time versus this, but if we had a flat fee that balanced it out somehow, that's what we'd be looking for?
I just think it's really important that we know what we spend so that we don't underspend. I don't care what we charge after that, $100. I think it's really important that we don't spend less than what we're outputting, considering that we have a new set of lights. It's $72 is actually a lot more than I thought it was gonna be. So I would go up in what we charge. We don't have to, but that would be, for me, that's a point of information that is crazy to not have when we just like throw numbers when we're charging people for stuff. This is not to recoup any loss. This is not to put more money, like that just adding more money to our parents who are putting their kids in youth sports. That's not what those lights were intended. It was intended to be better and to be less noisy and to be better for the planet and to be less, wearing on our turf. That's what that was for, not to recoup costs to the turf.
Ms. Carosello, did you have a question? No? Okay. Go for it.
It's out, and I think I know the answer, but RAB doesn't have like a slush fund where they all like go in together so that we could just charge them, so that like lacrosse, soccer, because you can like have
the
Shooting
town-
Stars, Glen Rock Soccer, and lacrosse, they're all on one night, and each are paying 100 or whatever it is.
Yeah, the town has them paying, and then they have a spreadsheet of who, the hours and whatever. It's kind of a mess.
It's messy.
Mr.
Yeah,
Cohen?
so I agree with Mr. O'Donnell. Like, I just feel like we need to have an information to make this. I don't know if it's $50 or $100, so any number would be a guess, and then I cannot just go out and justify in front of the public a number that we just guesstimated. So I don't think we need to do like a full analysis, but some logic or some data that we can look and feel that we're comfortable about the number that we're charging, just give us a sense of understanding.
Okay. Any other questions? Or is there, yes, Mr. Corey?
I think it's fair to understand operating costs. In the scale of $1.4 million for the capital expenditures, we're never going to amortize that cost at any rate if you ran for 2 years, 2.5 years continuously. So this is a bit of, like, we do have to meter the use of our fields, and I think that's part of this topic, whether or not it's lights or open the fence fee or whatever it is. It's really just metering the use of our fields, just to refocus the point of our topic, because we have a lot of fantastic programs that all want to use this, and I bet they would do it all the time if they could, so we want to make sure that there's access to this.
Okay. Is there a specific motion on the floor or a specific motion to be made?
To get that info,
Would you like to make a motion?
I'll make them.
Can you please, can you just specifically state what it is that you're asking, just so?
I would like to make a motion to get the kilowatt hour number for our new lights.
All right. So motion made by Ms. Rundell, seconded by Mr. Cohen. And all those in favor? All right. And any opposed? Okay. All right. Thank you. My phone went.
I believe that's all with policy. I
All
think we're
right.
done with policy.
I know, policy days are super fun. All right.
So,
Mr. Cohen has
Sorry,
a
just
question.
one more
Oh,
thing
I'm
about
sorry,
the
I
policy.
missed-
So
I'm
the
sorry.
policy, I was surprised to read it, but like, it says that we give priority to political organizations and church groups. So
For which, I'm sorry, which policy?
7510, like that's the policy that we're talking about. It's like priority usage. So I don't think we need to give priority to political organizations, and I don't think we should call out church groups. If we do want to put something, we should call out the religious groups, but not church groups. I just don't think it reads equitably if we prioritize church groups.
All right, hold on.
It's 7510, page 2 out of 3, the priorities.
So you'd like to change it to, I'm sorry, community religious groups? Is that what you were
I,
suggesting?
we can have I prefer removing those two sentences, but if we keep them, then let's change church to religious rather than church.
And to be clear, those are prioritized after, I don't know if these are after the rec advisory governmental agencies. It's not that those are ahead of anything.
My problem is that it's
So-
not the fact that they're in the, like the fact that we actually call it church in our
Yeah,
schools.
What if we say something like, community organizations, period? Because I think that that would be the only differentiation between that
That's what I was about to say.
as well as everything else, because private groups would suggest that it's anybody that was potentially out. So if we say community organizations to look at ways to allow for any community, or, viable community organization to be able to use it ahead of anybody else that would be outside, then maybe does that kind of clarify the spirit, you think? Okay.
Yeah, there's probably a reason why this was
Say
whittled
that again,
down
I'm
to
sorry.
actionable
So
words.
I think what has happened here is, like, it has this, like, subsect of community organizations formed for charitable purposes, or then community political or community church. I really think it's just saying community organizations have the priority before you get to private outside organizations.
My reading on this, it would be to restrict community for-profit organizations, right? A for-profit company in the town could consider themselves a community organization, and I don't think that they would be granted the same priority as a community organization formed for charitable, civic, social, or educational purposes.
I agree. Agreed.
Greg, thank you. Whether that was the intent originally or not, that'd be something, that's what I would support.
So then it's community religious groups as opposed to church groups, and we're leaving it in the
Yeah.
hierarchy.
Just add religious to that list of adjectives
Yeah, instead of
Right.
church.
and make it one sentence.
Does that mean,
All right, so then we would look to strike the word church and put community religious groups. And is there another?
James, you have that change?
Non-profit community organizations.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what we decided on, not-for-profit community organizations?
Yeah, I guess so. And in thinking about that, I would assume that if you're a nonprofit community organization, you have that designation. So,
Okay, so substitute those last three with nonprofit community organizations.
yeah. Are there any thoughts specifically
That's
about
fine.
that being exclusive? Okay. All right, thank you.
Now, are we done with policy?
I think so.
I think we are too.
Yeah, no, there's one more section, sorry. 5533, there's an optional section, extending the tobacco to alcohol and drugs.
Yeah, that's included.
So we're including the optional section
Yes.
in the vote? Okay, great.
All right. Now I think we're done with policy.
Okay.
All right. The old business, board goal policy review plan. Well, okay, so some of you have sent me emails about the specific policies that you would like to review, and I'm trying to figure out a good way for us to accomplish that. Considering, I thought about a Google spreadsheet, but Mr. Van Ness definitely pointed out that that may be considered like a violation because we're like working on a document in the cloud essentially, and that would be like, kind of like having a group meeting virtually essentially, even if we're not all doing it at the same time. So do any of you have any kind of suggestions on how we might approach this policy review process, or should we just continue on with it the way that we're doing this right now? And, listing out the policies and talking about the things that we would like to address. Mr. Hayward?
Since it's a goal and since it's talking about student achievement, if you want, I can go through the policies and maybe send you a recommendation. I'd say these might be good to look at, and then share with the board, let everyone read them, which could lead to a discussion, and we could talk about it.
Okay.
That way, we're not back and forth and having a virtual meeting.
Yeah. And then is it also possible that I forward you the information that might have been sent to me, and then you can use that to
Sure.
compile, because maybe there's some overlap there?
100%.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Is everyone in agreement with that kind of process? And then we'll discuss it as a board.
Right. And really, just to, from a structural standpoint, if anyone else has things they are interested, they should go to you, right? Because we all talk to the president, and then you could just tell me,
And then I'll.
throw
and
this on or add this on or
You'll be
whatever.
managing the process. And then you'll present us back some sort of like structural document that we
Structural
would
way to go through it.
have. Yeah, I would love that. Okay, thank you. All right. All right. Now on to, we don't have any items for governance, INP, old business, pre-K.
Just a quick update. I've been meeting with Dr. McKay and Ms. Hofspringer, and we have some meetings set up over the next couple days to just kind of talk about kicking off pre-K things. Since you all decided on a tuition rate, we're working on how we're going to do registration, when's registration going to open up. We're aiming for the same time frame as kindergarten registration. And looking at how are we going to reach out, how are we going to advertise, how are we going to do that. A lot of preschools, pre-Ks in the area are having open houses right around now because it's the time season. We can't quite do that. We have ceilings and floors, but not everything is in yet. It is looking really sharp, really happy with the way it's coming around. But so we're working on that. We're going to make some decisions this week probably about kind of how we're going to roll out and how we'll collect payment, and registration, and all of that. So we'll share that as we develop. But we're moving right along. Pretty excited about it.
Excellent, thank you. Even, not saying that you haven't already considered this, but thinking like maybe HSA presidents and like CPAC representatives and everything, like, because I know it's hard for us to be able to post sometimes and like on social media, like knowing that mom groups and things like that would be a great place for this, or parent groups rather, but perhaps those representatives would have that access.
And I certainly talked with them about that on Friday, saying
Excellent.
exactly the same thing.
Excellent. All right. On to, there's nothing for special services. Actually, I would say that there is hold on, let me just pull this up in my email. Yes. Yep, if you have it up. You have it up, can you just, because I don't want to go through my email.
At the last meeting, I mentioned that CPAC was putting together a session for parents. It's on Thursday, March 6th from 7 to 8:30. It's a parent chat, Who Are the Helpers, led by Dr. Mary Beth Reardon with Hearts and Hands. You all have it in your inboxes, so I encourage everyone to take a look at it. And they've been posting on social media about it. There's a flyer for parents to be aware, but it's geared to classified kids with IEPs, but the content's also really available to any parent that's interested on the correct way to escalate questions and who to go to. So I actually recommend it for broad engagement.
Just offhand, is this going to be available virtually at all, or?
I think it's
Is
in
it in-
person.
They asked that, and the answer's
Okay.
The answer's
All
no.
right.
It will be done. There's some outside trainer coming in, and
Yeah,
they're
it's
not
at the
doing it
media
Got
center
it.
here.
Understood. Thank you.
I think they were also asking the general public to RSVP,
Yeah, to
just
help
so
with planning.
that, planning, yeah.
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 They are
it
asking
looks
folks to RSVP, but they said they won't turn you away if you show up having
Right.
not done so. But they very much would like it if you RSVP so that they kind of know how to set up.
Okay. Are there members of the board that would be in attendance for this evening? Okay, all right.
I'm going to be on a flight, so I cannot make it. So if you can represent, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
I really wanted to be there.
Okay, I would absolutely love to attend, and unfortunately, I am scheduled for work that night. So, yeah, please do, share what you find out, so thank you. All right, I don't see any items for management or community, and on to fiscal management. Mr. Canales?
So I'm going to start under discussion. For some reason, it was left off of the agenda. The fact that in your backup packages, you received the detail and summary budget information for the 25-26 budget. So you have one packet in there, which is really a bit more high level, talking about all of our revenues, expenditures, tax implications, things of that nature. And then you have two documents that are coming straight out of our budgeting software that you could look line by line what is budgeted and how the budget was created over time. So just want to give you a real a high-level overview, and obviously from our timeline, we know that you're getting this now sometime before March 19th, when it is due to the county, which I believe is March 17th. We will be having a meeting to approve the tentative budget, and again, that approval is merely for us to submit the tentative budget to the county for review, and then we'll have our final public meeting on the budget sometime at the end of April. So the big picture is our expenses are up $2.4 million over last year's budget. It's primarily due to healthcare costs. Our premiums in the state plan have increased $1.1 million. Special ed costs have risen $1 million, mostly due to out-of-district placements, transportation, and the associated aids with our special ed students. We've seen some increases of about $600,000 in our custodial services and our utilities. We've also, just our general increase in wages, bringing our total increase of expenses to $2.4 million. Well, how are we going to fund that $2.4 million? We're currently anticipating a 3.88% increase on the tax levy, bringing the tax levy to $2.1 million. That includes $1.1 million, which is the allowable statutory 2% increase, $800,000, which is the health benefit cap adjustment that we get, which basically says, hey, if the health insurance premiums increase above 2%, that there is some relief that comes back to the district. We're also going to need to use $200,000 of bank cap. That's cap space that we didn't use in prior years. The downside to that is that we don't have any more bank cap left. Other avenues of where we're going to increase that money is where we will do our painting project this year as a withdrawal from our capital reserve that we established last year. We're also going to go back to maintenance, what did I say, capital? Oh, I'm so sorry, the maintenance reserve, my bad. We're also going to go back to a practice whereby the district, the community school would make a contribution to the operating budget. We hadn't done that since pre-COVID. The community school is now kind of back to operating under normal circumstances, and all of their programs are running, so we're going to budget this year a contribution from them. And just keeping in mind that the other item that hurt us from a negative perspective on revenues is the fact that we've been lowering the excess surplus that we've been balancing our budgets with. I think last year it was $1.5 million. This year we're going to do it on 1.4, and the idea is to continue to reduce that number as we move forward. Because as you can see from the numbers, special ed and healthcare costs are up $2.1 million, but the 2% tax levy and the health insurance cap only provides $1.9 million in revenues. So we're beginning to feel the crunch of the 2% tax levy. So I think as we move forward, our ability to generate surplus will certainly be mitigated, and so we need to start weaning ourselves off of that number that we need to balance our budget. Some other highlights that, so needless to say, I think the budget, it's tight. We're going to make it, but it's not going to be as easy as maybe it was in the past. The other thing that we're not anticipating currently is an increase or decrease in state aid. Last year was the final year of S2, which was that redistribution of state aid from districts that were traditionally overfunded versus districts that weren't. So we are not anticipating an increase in our state aid this year. We have included, as you'll see if you read through the assumptions, we have 2 out-of-district placements that are TBD to, protect us from any students that may come into the district or get classified and are in need of out-of-district placements moving forward. We did need to eliminate, if you remember in last year's budget, we created 3 positions. We eliminated 2.5 of those positions. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. We created 4 positions. We eliminated 2.5 positions. So we have 1 position left, and that 1 position that's left is going to be the new preschool teacher. So there are no open positions in our budget. There are no new positions in our budget. Everything is being used or eliminated except for the 1 incremental for pre-K. Another thing that we did to save some money is we tweaked our student and athlete insurance policy. It didn't have a deductible, and it was 100% insurance, so we tweaked that a bit to go to an 80/20 coverage with a $500 deductible. So really just bringing that policy in line with what we all experience in our normal health insurance. And I think, other than that, I think those are the real highlights of the budget. We'll continue to work on it. Obviously, you guys have all of the information. If there's any questions, you could forward them to Greg, and we'll get you those answers as quickly as we possibly can. The only other thing I'd like to add, now that I'm thinking about it, is we had Mr. Corey alluded to it earlier. We had a rather thorough meeting with the Budget Committee where we went over each of the individual stress points in great detail and explained to the committee exactly where we were on each of the items. So that was, I think, a very fruitful process, and we welcome that moving forward.
All right.
Moving on to some other older business. So I'm back again with more allowance items downstairs as we continue to work on our pre-K. So we have 2 allowances that we just want to bring to your attention that we'll be moving forward with. One is some corridor piping enclosures. These were some pipes that couldn't be efficiently recessed into the ceilings or into some soffits, so we're just going to do some enclosure work, wrap them up, make them look kind of nice and blend into the ceiling. And the other thing was we needed some upgrades to an electrical panel, which we've actually already done so that we can provide safe power there. The remaining allowance currently stands at $9,616.56. So based upon where we are in the process of construction, we think that we'll be able to get to the finish line without any surprises, without having to come for additional funds beyond that. The next thing is back.
If I may ask just
Sure.
one, I remember you mentioned something about a door. Was there any update with regards to that, or we're still?
So the decision has been made that we are not going to magnify that door. And we're going to put a pin in it for some time. And as we move forward, we'll figure out if we maybe don't need to electrify the door for a card swipe. So we're going to go a little bit old school, and we're going to use a key to get in. And we think it'll work out just fine. We spoke with our folks in special services, and everybody seems to be, like, we'll give it a try and see how it works. Because that certainly would have put us in a position of being over our allowance.
Understood. Thank you.
The other update that I wanted to give was on our stadium project that we talked about a couple of months ago. And when we talked about it, we had a combined project of the turf, the track, and the press box. As our architects have been working on the project, the lead time on the press box is substantial. And would probably have the press box arriving sometime in December of '25, which obviously wouldn't really work. So what we're going to do is we are going to bifurcate the project. So we're going to do the track and the turf summer of '25, and the press box would be done the summer of '26. The cost is exactly the same as in aggregate. We just have bifurcated them between the two projects, and I can give you that total. The turf will be $1,536,014, and the press box will be $546,033. Both add up to the same $2,082,047 that we originally approved back in November. The fee for PSA remains the same, just again bifurcated between the two projects and still is at $191,600. So really no changes to the financials. It's just a matter of when we will be doing each of those projects. The last update that I have is on the Coleman roof. Back in October, we awarded the contract to a company based on low bid, and we are having some difficulty with that company, in particular getting them to send us a signed A201, provide us with a certificate of insurance, as well as providing us with a performance bond. So after consultation with our attorney, we decided to make a claim against their bid bond, which we did last week. And so we will keep you abreast of what's going on there. Worst case scenario is that we would have to rebid the entire project again, which would just delay the project and probably move it to the summer of '26 as well. So stay tuned, and we'll keep you updated on that. Last but not least, on your next agenda, at our next meeting, you will have the semi-waiver. Oh, sorry, it's a resolution on this agenda. Getting tired, I guess. So our for those who have been here before, with us before, this is something we do every year around budget time. Stands for the Specialized Education Medicare Incentive, and basically it's a program whereby we would be billing special ed costs first to Medicare before actually using district funds. The provision allows for districts with less than 40 students to opt out of the SEMI program, which I believe when when we look at the numbers that are provided by the county, I think it's something like about $1,000 of costs, which would certainly take many thousands of dollars to actually accumulate all of the reporting that goes into that report. Therefore, the county gives you, the state gives you the option of opting out. So before you is a resolution that would allow us to opt out and send that resolution to the county, and then they will check off a button on our budget that says Glen Rock is opting out of SEMI. And I don't think I mentioned it, but we only have 12 eligible students out of the 40, so we are well within the parameters to opt out. And that is it.
All right. Are there any questions regarding the budget and fiscal items? No? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Canales. That was very thorough.
I would like to say something, I'm sorry, about the budget.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And that is to just thank Mr. Canales for all of his work with this. We
Yeah.
met with the budget committee last week, was it? And everything he provided was very comprehensive and I think very informative. And I think the rest of you looking at it tonight or over the last week are going to recognize he has put enormous amounts of work into this. And I just appreciate the clarity that he's able to explain it to a former English teacher like myself. So I just want to appreciate that.
Well, I echo those sentiments. It's very digestible. Thank you. Okay. All right. Any additional items for operations? I don't see any. I would like to actually go back before we do the B1 resolution and just tack on for governance. So one thing that I said that I wanted to do, even at the end of last year, was discuss the Governance 2. Governance 2 2.0 is a guide basically to help school boards, superintendents, and schools work together more effectively. And I really, really want to work through this book with the board and make sure that we're kind of like maximizing all of our opportunities to keep some of the energy that we got and improve on it. So we were able to secure copies for all of our board members. Thank you, Mr. Venice. Thank you, Mr. Canales. And I'll just pass them down. That's for that direction. This one here. And 3 that direction. In the future, I will kind of put, and if you also, like, I mean, absolutely, like, read it, but we can also break it down in terms of, like, maybe digestible sections for us to, like, comment on, you know, like, things that we've learned or things that we're thinking, you know, about targeting specifically for our district, and kind of work through this process. I'd love to become, you know, more effective. Yeah, is there a problem with that? Like, can we mark it up and, like, if, yeah,
You may mark to your heart's content.
okay, yeah.
I taught annotation very clearly to my students all the time. Just be careful what you write in, but you may absolutely write in this book.
Yes, thank you. And I would kind of like it to be a tradition that, you know, any new board member that comes on, that, you know, like, part of it would be an official orientation process that we're going to develop. I have some aspects of it that are partially complete that I would like to review soon, but this is one key, and that's it for governance. All right, so can I have a motion to discuss B1? Mr. Hayward and Ms. Carosella seconds. Any additional comments or questions regarding B1 specifically? Seeing no comments, Mr. Canellis, are you able to call roll?
Ms. Carasola?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Mr. Hayward?
Yes.
Ms. Parlamas?
Yes.
Ms. Rendell?
Yes.
Ms. Stevenson?
Yes.
Ms. Calvez?
Yes.
Dr. Robinson?
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. Can I have a motion to affirm the decision made in GRMS HIB 272834 after conducting a hearing at the request of the parents as reported by the acting chief school administrator during the November 25th closed work session meeting? Ms. Rendell, seconded by Ms. Calvis. It was tough there for a moment. All right. All those in favor? Aye. All right, there you go.
I'm just going to recuse myself because I wasn't in the board in that.
As noted, Mr. Cohen, thank you. All right. I know we've kind of mixed in some liaison reports throughout this meeting, but is there anything that was not covered? Ms. Carousel?
I'll just want to let everyone know I did attend the middle school, high school HSA meeting. And it was great because we had the new science supervisor, Megan O'Hagan, there. So she got to kind of talk about her philosophy around science. Had already shared on day 8, she'd been to all the elementary schools and just loves our kids, says that they're very curious, which is the perfect start to a great scientist. So it was just great to hear from her. Very exciting. I think that was really the highlight. There was a comment, James, it might have already made it to you, about the back gate, people wondering when that's going to be reopened for the kids who commute to school from Cornwall. I guess kids are jumping over it. So.
Yeah, so it's still a construction site, and so we have to keep the construction fences up until all of the work is done. So the posts still need to be erected, as well as there's going to be ballard lighting that's going to go down there. So really, no one should be walking there and as it's appropriately blocked off.
Yeah, they were just asking if there's a timeline, but just letting you know. One last thing, Ms. Girlando was also there, and she talked about the Genesis pilot. I think everyone knows Genesis is turned off for during the day, and she said mixed reviews, but she's still standing by it and hopeful that it's gonna all work out. So
Will we be getting a readout on it at any point or only at the end of the marking period? Do we know?
What was your plan with regards to the pilot?
We will be doing it for the market period and revisit closer to the end to decide what we're doing for fourth market period.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I mean, since you mentioned it, I did have like a parent, a discussion, someone randomly approached me about it, and just stated that I guess their child was feeling more anxious in anticipation of not being able to use it. And I just found, that interesting. But again, this was something that was kind of close to the beginning of the pilot. So I really am interested to see kind of like how it happens over the course of the period. Because I think anytime there's like any major change, there's going to be a lot of like a gut reaction to it. So I would like to see, like that initial feedback and how it changes maybe over the course of it. So
Yeah, since you're mentioning feedback, I've heard a lot of individual student feedbacks about it, that they have more stress when it's off.
Yeah.
But I would particularly be interested to see when we do the readout, what the web activity is at like 3:01, versus at 7 o'clock. What's that?
I believe it's till 4 o'clock.
Oh, 4 o'clock, at 4:01,
Yeah.
at 4 o'clock versus, 7 o'clock. I'd love to see like the
if all of a
wave of
sudden there's, like,
activity
this-
when we do the analysis.
Yeah, and I mean, I really honestly don't remember any kind of realistic expectation that I was going to get my grades immediately, truthfully. And I understand that, things have changed significantly with technology and online grading and things like that. And this is kind of like an unintended consequence that there's actually an expectation that pretty much as soon as you take your test that you're getting the result. So it's just interesting, and I wonder, what other schools as well are doing to combat this kind of problem, because we have like this immediacy in our culture that we're expecting. So, all right. Did you have another liaison? Did you have a liaison thing?
Did you, like our subcommittees? Do you
Oh,
want our
well,
report?
go for it. You can go.
The subcommittee that's working on the CSA evaluation, we met and we're meeting on Wednesday with the Zoom with a company that Damali and I met with last year that is going to review how their evaluation's set up. We did look to see if there was other companies, but there's not a big market for this out there. So, we'll report back after we speak, and we have the meeting with the company. It's called Super Eval, if anybody wants to go online and look at it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Stevenson. And in our effort to like really be governed effectively, it's really nice when board members also do that kind of like self-evaluation process. I know I mentioned that Ms. Rendell had achieved certified board member, but guess what? There's more. Karen Stevenson has too. So I just want to make sure that you certified board member. She is a certified board member. We now have 2. So, congratulations to you for achieving that. And, keep on doing the professional development. So our next meeting is.
I'm sorry, one
go
more
for it.
question about when we met. Stephanie took notes. Should we share them with the rest of the board? Should we send them to you when we're done? Like, what
Yes.
kind of process are we going to do for
Meeting
these
minutes.
Mr. Canales answer that.
Thank you.
Should we not, I just kind of feel like we should have taken notes because we met and we want to document it, but I don't know, should we
Meeting, yeah,
be sharing?
definitely. Mr. Canales?
You can send them to us, and then we will just distribute them with your agendas.
thank you. Yeah, if you can, so typically, if you think about a timeline, we have our agenda reviews, like, let's say like Wednesday, Thursday before the meeting. So if you know that there's a meeting coming up on Monday, if you could get in, and you happen to have your, you know, like, based on the flow of our meetings, you happen to have your meeting in advance of that, then just, if you could forward it, we'll make sure that we'll add that into the agenda. Yes.
So our committee's meeting on Friday, is there any kind of template you want us to use, or just to, okay, perfect, thanks.
All right. Excellent. So we have our first public comments, our only public comments on agenda items. If you could please state your name. I don't see anybody. Okay. Seeing nobody for public comments, we can open and then close them, 9:18. All right, and so we actually need to go back into closed, not to discuss any items that we'll be voting on, but just to continue some conversations that require us to be in closed. So I need a motion to recess the regular session and go into closed. Ms. Carosella, seconded by Mr. Corey. No voting, we'll take.
The motion and seconder, please.
So we are recessing.
Who was the mover?
Oh,
and-
sorry, Stephanie, seconded by Daniel.
Thank you.
Daniel. Thank you. All in favor? All right. All right, none opposed?
We're in closed.
Yes.